For number 1, we want to remember the bullseye in the middle of our real number diagram is natural numbers, and those are the ones you can count on your hands. The next ring out is the whole numbers, and that's the natural numbers plus 0. So for which set or sets does the number 0 belong to? That would be whole numbers. It would also be, because if you put it through the bullseye, it would also be in integers and rational numbers. Because if you remember, we talked about if it goes through the whole numbers, it also goes through the integers, and it goes through rational. So the best answer here would be D, whole numbers, integers, and rational numbers. Looking at number 2, which of the following statements about rational numbers is correct? All rational numbers are also whole numbers. Well, we know that's not correct because you can have 1/2 as a rational number, and that's not a whole number. All rational numbers are also integers, and again, that's not correct because fraction or decimal would not be an integer. All rational numbers can be written in the form AB. Well, my example here, it is in the form AB. If we have a whole number, say 8, that can also be written in form AB. So that could be the correct answer. Rational numbers cannot be negative. Well, we know that's not true because integers can be negative. So if integers can be negative, rational numbers can be negative. So using process of elimination, but also our knowledge of rational numbers, we know that C would be the best answer. Looking at number 3, says Jenny wrote a rational number that is positive. Which of the following is not a possible number that she wrote? This is a little bit of a trick question because you look and everything appears to be positive. 1 is certainly positive, so she could write that. 7/8 is positive, so she could write that, and we're looking for what is not a possible number. 5 1/4 is positive. So that leaves 0, and 0 is neither positive nor negative, so that would be your answer. Okay, for number 4, write a pair of opposites that would best be classified as rational numbers. So when it asks you to get something that can best be classified as a rational number, you want something that really only would fit in the rational numbers. So we could pick any number. I could say -2/3 is a rational number. It's not an integer, whole, or natural. And it says a pair of opposites. So the opposite of -2/3 would be +2/3. So any fraction or decimal are what you would put for best classified as a rational number. What has the same absolute value of -55? You know that absolute value is the distance between the number and 0. So in this case, the distance between -55 and 0 would be 55. So that would be your answer. Absolute value will always be positive. Okay, for number 6, we're looking at which number line shows -1/4 and its opposite. So if you look at A, I do see that 1/4 is marked, but its opposite, well, Actually, that is its opposite. So we don't have negative 1/4 marked, so that cannot be the right answer. B has negative 1/4 and positive 1/4, so that seems right. C has negative 3/4 and positive 3/4, because if you count the hash marks, it's 1, 2, 3/4. And then D just has negative 1/4 and not its opposite. So D would not be right. So B would be your best answer. If number 7, if Louise correctly marked 2 12/100ths, 2 1/50th, 2 32/100ths, and 256% on a number line, which number was closest to 2? I'm going to draw my number line out there. I know with fractions and decimals and percents, I need to get them all in the same form. So I already have 2 1/12 as a decimal, so I'll just keep that. Then my next number is 2 1/50th. I want to make that into a decimal, so 2 1/50th. I know that 50ths can be changed easily to hundredths by multiplying both sides by 2. So I have 2 2/100ths, which would be written as the decimal 2 2/100ths. I have 2 32/100ths, and then 256%. I know using Dr. Pepper, going from percent to decimal, I want to move my decimal point 2 to the left, so that would be 2 56/100ths. So now I need to see which number is closest to 2. I don't really even have to put it on the number line. If I line up my decimals and look at them column by column, I have 2 12/100ths, 2 2/100ths, 2 32/100ths, 2 56/100ths. Starting on the left, if I compare all my ones place, it's all the same, so that doesn't really help me. If I go to the tenths place, I can see I have a 1, I have a 0, I have a 3, and a 5. So clearly the smallest number, the closest to 2, would be my 2 2/100ths. Now remember, they want you to put it back in the original form. So originally my 2 2/100ths was written as 2 1/50th. So either looking at number 8, they give you Tommy's points on each day, Monday through Thursday. Tommy is playing a game in which he can score points each day. His scores for 4 days are shown in the table above. On which day did Tommy score the least points? So if you're looking at the chart, we would normally need to change our fractions to decimals, but in this case it's asking which day he scored the least points, and clearly if he scored negative points somehow, then that's going to be the least points that he scored. So your answer would be Monday. Number 9, looking at the daily temperature in Calgary, Monday through Thursday. The table shows the daily temperature for a 4-day period in Calgary. Lists the temperature in order from greatest to least. So we know with temperature, the least temperature is going to be the furthest away from 0, because these are negative numbers. So if I look at the numbers in order, and I have, we'll just put negative 8 and 1/10 here, negative 7 and 8/10 is going to be above that. Now, negative 8 and 5/100 is going to be in between. And then negative 8 and 18/100 is going to be further down. So our greatest number in this case is the one closest to 0, which is negative 7 and 8/10, then negative 8 and 5/100, then negative 8 and 1/10, and then negative 8 and 18/100. So remember, if you're going in negative numbers, greatest to least, the greatest number is going to be the one closest to 0. Number 10, which of the following mixed decimals would be between 2 and 3/4 and 3 on the number line? Well, I know from my benchmark fractions that 2 and 3/4 is the same as 2 and 75/100, and then between 3. So A, it could not be, because 2 1/2 would be to the left of 2 and 75/100. 2 and 65/100 would also be to the left. 2 and 8/10 would fall between my 2 and 75/100 and my 3. And just checking, 2 and 73/100 is going to be smaller, so that would be to the left. So the one that falls within those two numbers is C, 2.8 or 2 and 8/10. Okay, number 11. Martha must write a rational number in the blank in the list below so that the list is ordered from greatest to least. So I want to find the number that will lay between 374 and 6/10 and 373. So looking at my answer choices, I'm going to have to change my fractions into decimals. But looking at my answer choices, I actually see that for choice A, it's 375 and 4/5. Well, 375 is going to lay outside of the area that I am looking at, because it will be greater than the 375. So we can eliminate A. We can also eliminate D, because 372 is going to lay outside my area to the right. So it's going to be either B or C. So looking at B, if I change that to a decimal, I would have 374.5, because that's a benchmark fraction, so you know 1/2 is 0.5. C is 374 and 3/4, which is also a benchmark fraction, which equals 75/100. So I'm looking for which one will fall between 373 and 374 and 6/10. Well, 5/10 is smaller than 6/10. 75/100 is bigger, so it cannot be C, it would have to be B. Which set of integers is ordered from greatest to least? So looking at A, negative 5 is smaller than 8, so it can't be A, greatest to least. Negative 17 is smaller than 14, so it can't be B. 14 is greater than 8. 8 is greater than 5. 5 is greater than negative 5, and negative 5 is greater than negative 17. So it would be C. If you look at D, 14 is greater than 5, but 5 is not greater than 8, so that does not work. Which number line represents points that are located and labeled correctly from least to greatest? So in this case, we are going to have to change our fractions again to decimals. I made this one a little bit bigger so we could see the numbers. So if I'm going to change 3/16 to a decimal, I will need to divide 16 into 30 goes one time, subtract, and you'll get 14 left over, bring down your 0. 16 goes into 148 times. That will give me 128. Subtract again. Leaves me 12. Bring down another 0. 16 goes into 127 times. Subtract again. You're left with 8. Bring down another 0, and 16 goes into 85 times. Need to bring my decimal point up. So 9 and 3/16 is actually 9 and 100. I'm sorry, 1,875 10,000ths. I'll erase all this. Now if I change 9 and 1/4, that would be 9.25. 9 and 7/8. 7/8 is a benchmark fraction, so that would be 9 and 875 10,000ths. So now we need to look and see if these numbers are in order. So I see that 9 goes to 9.1875, 9.25, that's fine, 9.6, 9.75, 9.875, and then 10. So those appear to be in order, but we'll check the other ones. We have 9, 9.25, 9.1875. So that is not in order. 9, 9.25, 9.6, 9.1875. So that is not in order. 9 to 9.1875, 9.25, 9.75, 9.6. So these are not in order. So it is A. Now we need to see which statement about the mixed number 2 and 1/4 is true. Again, I prefer to change these to decimals. You don't have to if you can compare fractions because they're all in fractions. But if I think about 2 1/3, for choice A, I know that 1/3 is 0.3 repeating. So is 2.3 repeating less than 2.25? And I know because I compare my tenths here that it's not, because 3/10 is greater than 2/10. For choice B, 2.75 less than 2.25. And again, that is not true because comparing my tenths place, I have a 7 and a 2. For choice C, I have 2 25 is less than 1 1/2, and I know that's not true. So then I have choice D, 2 1/2 is greater than 2 1/4. And you can see that that is true. Looking at 15, approximately what percent of the large square below is shaded? So if I want to find the percent, I need to do part over whole. I know the whole is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 squares. And I know that the shaded squares are 1, 2, 3, 4. So 4/9 is shaded, but I need to change that to a percent. So I'm going to do my division. 9 goes into 40 4 times. I'm going to get a repeating decimal. So it's 0.44, 44/100 repeating. If I change that decimal to a percent, I'm going to Dr. Pepper. I know that I need to move it over 2 times to change from decimal to percent. So it would be 44%. Then looking at the shaded grid, I know that I'm going to make this one bigger so we can see it a little bit better. Maybe I'm not. Push that up. See if we can get this bigger. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So I have a 10 by 10, so it's 100 squares. 10, 20, 30, 40. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 48 of those are colored in. I know that percent is out of 100, so 48 over 100 equals 48%. Choice B. For number 17, a basket has both red and green apples. The shaded section of the strip diagram represents the number of red apples in the basket. So these are the red apples. If 28 apples in the basket are green, how many red apples are in the basket? So I know 28 are divided into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 baskets, or sections of the basket. So if 28 are divided into 7 sections, that means there are 4 apples in each of those sections. So if I did 4 apples in each section, that means that these also have 4 in each section. So if I add up my 3 4s, I would get 12. Number 18, what is the sum of the two fractions on the number line expressed as a percent? So you have 1/2 and 3/4. So I'm going to add 1/2 and 3/4, 3/4. When I add those together, I have to get a common denominator. I can tell that the common denominator is going to be 4ths. So I'm going to multiply my 2 by 2 to get my 4. So I have to multiply my top by 2. So that would be 2/4. The 3/4 stays the same. So the total is 5/4. So if I have 5/4 and I'm going to change that to percent, I'll first need to change it to a decimal. So I see that I will divide the denominator into the numerator. 4 goes into 5 one time. I'm going to subtract. I'm going to add my decimal point and my 0 and bring down my 0. 4 goes into 10 2 times. Move all this up. So 4 goes into 10 2 times. Subtract again, I get 2. Add another 0, bring it down. 4 goes into 25 times. So if I bring my decimal point up, I get my fraction is 1 25/100. I need to change that to percent. Decimal to percent, I move to the right, so that equals 125%. So it's not C or A. We'll have to go on to the next page to find out where the correct answer is for the 125%. So it would be B. Those answers were split between the two pages. Number 19, Braden took a survey of his classmates and recorded the information on the chart below. What part of Braden's classmates chose theater as the favorite elective? So the key word here is part. So I want to find out what the part over whole, because we want to know not how many, but what part of the total. So for theater, there were 27 people, but we'll have to add the 4 numbers to get together to get the total. So 15 plus 8 plus 27 plus 10 will give you 60. So I'm looking at my answer choices. None of them are 27 over 60, so I can try simplifying that. If I simplify by 3, I would get 9/20. I still don't see that, so I can change that to a decimal. I know that 9 over 20 can be changed to hundredths by multiplying each by 5. So now I have 45 over 100. Well, 45 over 100 is the same thing as 45 hundredths, which is choice A, 45 hundredths. Number 20, Shelby spelled 7 out of 10 words correctly on a spelling test. Expressed as a decimal, what part of the words did Shelby spell incorrectly? So we know that she got 7 out of 10 correct. Well, if she got 7 out of 10 correct, that means that she missed 3. So she got 3 out of 10 incorrect. So 3/10 as a decimal would be written as 0.3 or 3/10. 21 of the 6th graders at Tremont Junior High, 5/8 plan to take athletics in the 7th grade, which represents the part of the students who do not plan to take athletics in 7th grade. So I know that if 5/8 is planning to, then it must leave 3/8 who are not planning to take athletics, because 5 plus 3 would be 8, so 8/8 would be the total amount of students in 7th grade. So 3/8 do not intend to take athletics. Now I can see that my answers are in decimals and percents, so I'm going to have to change my 3/8 to a decimal. I know that I can divide 8 into 3. It's also a benchmark fraction, 1/8 and 3/8, but we'll go ahead and divide this out. So 8 goes into 30 3 times. We give you 24. Add your 0, bring it down. 8 goes into 67 times. Add your 0, bring it down. 8 goes into 45 times. So it would be 375 thousandths. And I can see choice C has 375 thousandths. If I just want to check if that percentage is correct, I know I need to move my decimal point over 2 times. So it would be 37.5%.